Look, I have been the chief xenobiological assessor for the Galactic Council for 73 cycles, and I thought I had seen everything. Every species that crawled, slithered, or teleported their way into space exploration had crossed my desk. I had evaluated KRYLL warriors who could bench press a shuttle, Venari navigators who could calculate hyperspace routes in their sleep, and Dolmec engineers who built stations that defied physics itself, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the humans. The incident report landed on my workstation with all the subtlety of a meteor strike. Planet designation, Verdax 9. Classification, Death World, Category 5. The notation made my secondary heart skip. Category 5 meant that 9 out of 10 expeditions never returned. The jungle covering 80% of that nightmare planet was not just hostile. It was aggressively, creatively, almost personally murderous. We lost the KRYLL first. 12 of their finest soldiers, armor thick enough to stop plasma rounds, reflexes sharp enough to dodge laser fire. The jungle consumed them in 4 days. We found one helmet, partially dissolved, hanging from a vine that was still digesting it. The Venari tried next. Their telepathic abilities, they claimed, would let them sense danger before it struck. We received exactly one transmission, screaming. Just screaming. Then silence. The emergency beacon kept pinging for 6 days before something presumably ate it too. Third attempt, the Dolmec sent drones. Hundreds of them, each one worth more than a small space station. The jungle found this hilarious. Every single drone was either crushed, melted, eaten, or in one particularly disturbing case, reprogrammed by some kind of parasitic spore network that turned them against each other. We watched them fight to the death through increasingly corrupted video feeds. The council declared Verdax 9 off limits. We marked it as a failed venture. The resources there, valuable as they were, simply were not worth the cost in lives and equipment. Any species foolish enough to ignore the warnings would learn the hard way, assuming they lived long enough to regret it. Then the humans showed up, Commander Marcus Vale. That was his name. I remember staring at his application with mounting disbelief. A single human, requesting permission to survey Verdax 9. Solo. No backup team. No military escort. Just him, a ship that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and optimism, and a smile that I could only describe as unsettling in its confidence. Request denied. I told him via subspace comm, Verdax 9 has a 90% fatality rate. 90%. The deadliest species in the galaxy have tried and failed. Neat, he said, leaning back in his chair. So you're saying there is room for improvement? I blinked all 3 of my eyes in sequence. Did you not hear the part about 90% death rate? Oh, I heard it. But see, that is the thing about statistics. Someone has to be in that 10%, right? Might as well be me. He actually winked. Winked. Besides, I grew up on Earth. How bad could it be? How bad could it be, he asked. Earth, for context, was itself classified as a Death World Category 3. Humans had evolved on a planet that actively tried to kill everything living on it, and they somehow decided this was normal. They had creatures called hippos that killed more humans annually than their apex predators. Their weather patterns included phenomena called tornadoes that were basically sideways blenders made of wind. They invented a sport where they threw themselves out of aircraft for fun. Commander Vale, I said, trying to inject some authority into my voice. Verdax 9 is orders of magnitude more dangerous than Earth. The jungle there has evolved predatory intelligence. Plants that hunt in packs. Insects the size of your torso with venom that dissolves bone. Atmospheric spores that hijack neural tissue. And that is just what we catalogued before everyone died. Right, super dangerous, got it. He was typing something, barely paying attention. So I will need to bring bug spray, then. Bug spray. Bug spray. Did you not hear anything I just said? Look, he said, finally giving me his full attention. I appreciate the concern, really. But humans have this thing we do. When everyone says something is impossible, we get this itch. Like an actual physical itch. And the only way to scratch it is to go prove them wrong. It is probably a design flaw, honestly, but it has worked out pretty well for us so far. I tried 3 more times to dissuade him. I showed him the footage. The screams. The dissolving helmet. The drone massacre. He watched it all with this expression of intense focus, occasionally pausing to take notes. Notes. Like he was watching a training video instead of a horror compilation. Fascinating, he muttered. That vine has a distributed nervous system. And those spores, they are using electrical signals to coordinate. This place is incredible. Incredible is not the word I would use. What would you use? Apocalyptic. Nightmarish. Actively malevolent. Take your pick. He grinned. You say potato, I say adventure opportunity. Against my better judgment, against protocol, against every survival instinct I had developed over my long career, I approved his request. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was tired of writing death reports. Or maybe, just maybe, I wanted to see if humans were really as absurdly resilient as their reputation suggested. Fine, I said. But you sign a waiver. Full responsibility. When the jungle kills you, and it will kill you, I want it in writing that you were warned. Deal. He signed the digital document without even reading it. See you in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The KRYLL lasted 4 days. Cool. So I will bring extra snacks. The comm link closed. I sat there in my office, surrounded by reports and data streams, wondering if I had just signed a death warrant for the most confidently delusional being I had ever met. 3 weeks passed. Then 4. Then 5. The emergency beacon assigned to his ship remained silent. No distress calls. No status updates. Nothing. I started drafting the death report, trying to figure out how to phrase warned him repeatedly, but he went anyway in official council language. On day 37, my workstation chimed. Incoming transmission from Verdax 9. I stared at it for a full minute, convinced it was a malfunction. Then I opened it. Marcus Vale's face appeared on screen. He looked tired, slightly scratched up, and his hair was an absolute disaster. But he was alive. Alive and smiling. Hey there, Chief. Miss me? I could not form words. My translator implant actually buffered for a second, unsure if it was processing correctly. I know, I am a week late. Sorry about that. Things got a bit hectic. But good news. I finished the survey. Verdax 9 is actually not that bad once you understand the ecosystem dynamics. Also, I may have accidentally adopted some local wildlife. Is there a customs form for that, or? You survived. How? Oh man, it is a whole story. Got chased by these pack hunting vines on day 2, nearly got dissolved by acid pollen on day 8. Had a 30-hour standoff with something I can only describe as a biological tank crossed with a tornado. But here is the thing, once you figure out the pattern, it is all manageable. The jungle is not trying to kill you. It is just very aggressively defending its territory. Big difference. That is trying to kill you. Sure, but politely. Behind him, I could see movement. Several shapes, large and distinctly not human, moving around what appeared to be his ship's cargo hold. Commander Vale, what is in your ship? Oh, these guys. He swung the camera around. I immediately regretted asking. There were creatures there. Multiple species that had definitely tried to kill him at some point. A 6-legged thing with too many teeth. A floating mass of what looked like angry moss. Something that was definitely one of those pack hunting vines, except this one had a collar around its main stalk. Meet the crew, Marcus said cheerfully. This big guy is Chomper. He tried to eat me on day 5. We worked it out. That floating one is Buzz. Long story. And this lovely lady is Spite, because she spent 6 hours trying to strangle me before we became friends. They are coming back with me. I had stopped breathing. My species could hold breath for 15 minutes, which was good, because I needed all 15. You befriended them. Technically, they befriended me after I saved them from bigger predators. Turns out even murder plants appreciate backup. He held up something. A thick-bound document, hundreds of pages. Also, I wrote a field guide. Full ecosystem breakdown, predator-prey relationships, defensive strategies, safe zones, resource locations, everything. Verdax 9 is totally explorable if you know what you are doing. We could probably set up research stations within the year. Maybe even a colony if we are careful. The document began transmitting to my workstation. I opened it with shaking appendages. It was comprehensive. Detailed. Actually useful. There were sketches, biological analyses, chemical breakdowns of various toxins, behavioral notes on dozens of species we had never even glimpsed before. This insane human had not just survived. He had studied it. Catalogued it. Made friends with it. So, yeah, Marcus continued. I will file the official report when I get back. Should arrive at the station in about 12 days. Oh, and I am gonna need someone from quarantine to meet me. Chomper gets a bit anxious in new places, and by anxious I mean he might accidentally eat through a bulkhead. Better to have professionals on hand. That cool? Yes. Fine. Whatever you need. Awesome. Veil out. The transmission ended. I sat there in my office, staring at the field guide slowly loading onto my screen, listening to the distant sound of my own worldview shattering into a million pieces. Humans, I realized, were not just dangerous, because they came from a death world. They were dangerous because they looked at death worlds and saw challenges, puzzles, opportunities. They saw 90% fatality rates and thought sounds like decent odds, and somehow, impossibly, they made it work. I needed a drink. Several drinks. Maybe an entire barrel of drinks. This was going to change everything. 12 days later, Marcus Vale docked at Station Chorus 7 with an entourage that would haunt my nightmares for cycles to come. The quarantine team, bless their trembling appendages, had prepared for standard biological containment. Sealed chambers, atmospheric filters, stun barriers, the works. They were not prepared for Chomper to politely wave at them through the viewport with a limb that absolutely should not have been able to wave. "Define pet for me one more time," Chief Quarantine Officer Drell said, her voice climbing 3 octaves higher than her species typically managed. She was a Thesian, built like a small tank, with experience handling everything from plague carriers to radioactive slime molds. Right now she looked like she wanted to retire immediately. "Come on, he is friendly," Marcus called through the comm, scratching what I assumed was Chomper's head region. The creature made a sound somewhere between a purr and a rock slide. "Watch this. Chomper, sit." The 6-legged nightmare Saturday actually sat, like some kind of domesticated pet instead of an apex predator from a Category 5 death world. "I am filing a complaint," Drell muttered. "To someone. Everyone. The entire council. Get in line," I told her, watching the security feed with the kind of fascination usually reserved for watching stars collapse. I have been drafting mine for 2 weeks. The unloading process took 6 hours and required 3 emergency containment protocols that had never been tested outside of theoretical doomsday scenarios. Chomper behaved himself, mostly, except for the incident where he accidentally ate a cargo loader. The robot, thankfully, not the operator. Marcus apologized profusely and promised to pay for it, then explained that Chomper thought anything that moved quickly and beeped was food. Apparently they had worked on this behavior extensively, which implied it used to be much worse. Buzz, the floating moss entity, decided halfway through transport that it wanted to explore. It phased through 3 bulkheads before Marcus called it back with a series of whistles that I definitely heard in my nightmares later. The creature drifted back to him like a trained bird, settling onto his shoulder and emitting what the translation matrix interpreted as contentment, though it sounded like static having a conversation with wind chimes. Spite, the pack hunting vine, was actually the best behaved. She, and I use that pronoun because Marcus insisted, coiled herself into a compact bundle and only tried to strangle 2 security officers. Both times Marcus corrected her with a firm no, and she actually looked apologetic, if a homicidal plant could manage such an expression. "How?" I asked when Marcus finally stood in my office, his collection of impossible pets settled in the specially reinforced holding area we had hastily constructed. "How did you do this?" He shrugged, dropping into a chair that groaned under his weight. Humans were heavier than they looked, dense with muscle and bone adapted for higher gravity. Patience. Understanding. Little bit of luck. Look, people keep treating death world ecosystems like they are out to get you personally. They are not. They are just doing what evolution programmed them to do, which is survive and eat. Once you figure out the rules, work within them instead of against them, things get easier. The KRYLL tried working within the rules. They studied for months. Sure, but they went in as conquerors. Armor, weapons, the whole military approach. The jungle saw a threat and responded accordingly. He leaned forward, and I noticed new scars on his hands, thin white lines against tan skin. I went in as an observer. Watching, learning, not taking anything I did not need. When something attacked, I defended myself, but I did not pursue. When something was curious, I let it approach. You would be amazed what does not try to kill you when you are not acting like a threat. Spike literally tried to strangle you for 6 hours. Yeah, but that was a misunderstanding. She thought I was prey. Once I proved I was tougher than expected and helped her hunt something bigger, we reached an understanding. Now she is basically a very lethal guard dog. Watch this. He pulled out a communicator, tapping a command. Through the viewport into the holding area, Spite's main vine perked up. Marcus made a gesture, and she began arranging her smaller vines into patterns. Complex patterns. Taught her basic signals. She is smart. Really smart. Most people do not give predators enough credit for intelligence. Drell entered the office without knocking, which told me exactly how stressed she was. Your pets require 4 times the standard rations, a specialized atmospheric processor, and apparently Chomper eats metal as a dietary supplement. Metal. Who evolved to eat metal? Verdax 9 has mineral-rich deposits that most plants cannot process, Marcus explained calmly. Chomper's species fills that ecological niche. Breaks down or deposits, excretes purified minerals that fertilize the soil, whole circle of life thing. He is actually super helpful if you need mining done. Very efficient. You want to use a carnivorous metal eater as mining equipment. I mean, when you say it like that it sounds weird. I felt another headache forming. My species did not get headaches naturally. Humans were teaching me new biological responses. Commander Vale, your field guide has been reviewed by our xenobiology department. They confirm it is accurate, comprehensive, and frankly revolutionary. You mapped more of Verdax 9 in 5 weeks than we managed in 2 years of drone surveys. Thanks. I worked really hard on the sketches. The sketches are terrifying. You drew Chomper eating a boulder like it was an instructional diagram. Because it is. If you see Chomper eating a boulder, do not interrupt him. He gets cranky when interrupted during meals. Important safety information. Drell made a sound that might have been laughter or crying. Possibly both. I need authorization to retrofit Bay 12 as permanent habitat space. None of our standard containment will hold them long term, and stunning them just makes them angry. Especially Buzz. Apparently stunning electrical moss just charges it up. Learned that one the hard way, Marcus added helpfully. He knocked out power to my ship for 8 hours. Fun times. I authorized the retrofit with a gesture, watching my budget projections scream and die. The council wants to meet you. Formal presentation in 3 days. They want to know if Verdax 9 can be safely colonized following your guidelines. Absolutely. His enthusiasm was painful to witness. I even worked out optimal settlement locations, seasonal migration patterns of the really dangerous stuff, and communication protocols for the semi-intelligent species. The what now? Oh, did I not mention? There are at least 3 species on Verdax 9 with tool-using capability. Not spacefaring, obviously, but definitely sentient by council standards. I made contact with one group. Nice folks. Tried to poison me twice, but we worked it out. They have this whole sign language system that. He continued talking, but I had stopped processing words. Sentient species. On Verdax 9. That we had completely missed, because we were too busy dying to notice. The formal presentation 3 days later was either the finest moment of my career, or the most elaborate public breakdown ever recorded. Marcus stood before the full council, all 73 member species represented, with Chomper sitting obediently beside him like the galaxy's most nightmare-inducing emotional support animal. He started with the basics. Survival rates, resource availability, defensive strategies. The council members listened with varying expressions of disbelief, horror, and in the case of Ambassador Krenth, what I recognized as deeply wounded pride. The KRYLL did not enjoy being shown up by a single human doing what 12 of their warriors could not. Then Marcus got to the good part. So here is the thing, he said, manipulating the holographic display to show his route through the jungle. Verdax 9 is not an obstacle. It is an opportunity. The biodiversity alone represents centuries of pharmaceutical research. The mineral deposits Chomper's species processes. Rare earth elements we currently pay premium rates to synthesize. And those semi-sentient species I mentioned. They have been managing sustainable agriculture in a death world environment for generations. We could learn from them. You want us to establish diplomatic relations with plants, Council Member Vex stated flatly. Not plants, the Quillen. That is what they call themselves, near as I could translate. They are more like intelligent fungal networks with mobile fruiting bodies, but yeah, basically. He smiled at the collective silence. Look, I know this sounds insane. Trust me, I get it. But humans colonized our entire planet, including parts actively trying to kill us harder than Verdax 9 ever could. We built cities in deserts, on mountains, even on frozen wastelands. We learned how to coexist with ecosystems that hated us. This is the same thing, just scaled up. The fatality rate, Ambassador Krenth rumbled. 90%. For people who did not know what they were doing, yeah. With my field guide, proper training, and respect for the ecosystem, I would bet that drops below 10%. Maybe lower. Humans have this saying, knowledge is power. Well, now you have the knowledge. He paused, then added with that insufferable grin, also, I am offering training courses. Very reasonable rates. The council chamber erupted into arguments that lasted 4 hours. Some wanted to reject the proposal outright, declare Verdax 9 permanently off limits despite the new information. Others saw the commercial potential, and wanted immediate colonization rights. A few, including myself, just wanted time to process the fact that a single human had fundamentally rewritten our understanding of planetary classification systems. In the end, they approved a limited research station. 5-year trial period, strict adherence to Marcus's guidelines, mandatory training for all personnel. Marcus would serve as chief consultant, with Chomper, Buzz, and Spite officially recognized as research assistants. That last part required creating an entirely new category in council employment law. You realize what you have done, I told Marcus afterward, finding him in the observation deck with Chomper sprawled across 3 chairs. You have made humans the galaxy's go-to experts for death world colonization. Is that bad? Bad? We have 47 planets in quarantine status, because they are too dangerous. 47. And now every human entrepreneur in the galaxy is going to see profit margins instead of danger warnings. He laughed, the sound echoing in the empty deck. Yeah, probably. But think about it this way. All those planets, just sitting there, untouched. Resources, research opportunities, living space. The galaxy is growing, populations expanding. Eventually, we would need those worlds anyway. At least now we have a method that does not involve throwing bodies at the problem until something sticks. I settled into a chair, my exoskeleton creaking slightly. He had a point. Infuriating, terrifying, but valid. Your species is going to give the council collective anxiety disorders. Probably. But you will thank us eventually. He scratched Chomper behind what might have been ears, the creature rumbling contentedly. Besides, someone has to do the crazy stuff. Might as well be the species too stubborn to know when something is impossible. 6 months later, Research Station Verdax opened with full staff complement. 0 fatalities in the first year. By year 2, they were exporting botanical samples worth billions. Year 3 brought first contact with the Quillen, formal diplomatic relations established through a human xenoanthropologist who Marcus personally trained. Year 5 saw the first permanent settlement, population 500, representing 12 different species, and Marcus. He was already scouting his next project. Planet designation, Infernus Prime. Category 6. The only Category 6 in Council records. Volcanic activity that melted most probe equipment. Atmosphere that was technically on fire. Native life forms that defied several laws of thermodynamics. Request approved, I told him, barely looking up from my work. I had stopped trying to argue. Try not to befriend any lava monsters. No promises. He closed the comm link, and I could practically hear that insufferable grin through subspace. I updated his file, adding commendations, warnings, and a personal note for whoever reviewed these records in the future. Humans do not see impossible. They see expensive. And for the right price, usually measured in curiosity and spite, they will walk into nightmares and come back with field guides and pets. The galaxy would never be the same. And somehow, against all logic and self-preservation instinct, that was probably a good thing. Probably. I still kept that barrel of drinks handy, just in case.